Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I've lived on my family's ranch for as long as I can remember. My grandparents started the place decades ago, and my parents took it over once they got married. Now that my folks are retiring, the responsibility of running the ranch falls on my shoulders. It's always been a peaceful sort of life out here. Just me, my horses, and acres of open land. Sure, we get the occasional lost hiker wandering onto the property, but a quick howdy stranger, and pointing them towards the main road, is all it takes. For the most part, my biggest worries are the weather, and making sure my cattle are happy and healthy. At least that's how it used to be, before Helga moved in down the road. Helga bought the plot of land neighboring ours a few months back. Right from the get-go, she made it clear she wasn't the friendly type. Never waved or nodded when driving by. Hollered at my ranch hands when they got too close to the property line while working. She even called the sheriff on my buddy when he pulled over to take a whiz near her mailbox. Still, I tried to give Helga the benefit of the doubt. City folk aren't used to ranch life. Maybe she just needed some time to adjust. I figured a nice welcoming gift might break the ice. My wife Beth whipped up a batch of cookies and I brought them over with a friendly howdy neighbor greeting. Well, Helga didn't take too kindly to that. Started hollering about how I was trespassing and invading her privacy. I apologized and backed away slowly with my hands up, as one does when encountering an angry bull on the range. From then on, I made sure to give Helga her space. Whenever I had ranch hands working near her property line, I'd give her a heads up. I put up an extra fence to keep my cattle from wandering over. But no matter what I did, Helga always found something to complain about. She'd call me at all hours, ranting about the smell from the barn or the sound of my rooster crowing. I tried explaining that's just part of living out here, but she wouldn't have any of it. She even started documenting everything, taking photos and writing up these nasty letters about how I was disturbing her. I talked it over with Beth and we agreed avoiding conflict was best. The woman was clearly a few horses short of a stable. Arguing would get us nowhere, so I just focused on my work and stopped contacting Helga altogether. Unfortunately, she had other plans. One afternoon, I was out fixing some fencing when I saw a shiny BMW parked on my back pasture. As I got closer, I recognized Helga sitting inside, chatting away on her cell phone. I took a deep breath and walked over calmly. "Excuse me, ma'am. I don't mean to be a bother, but you seem to have parked on my property." Helga rolled down her window with an annoyed huff. "So? I'm just answering some emails. I'll move when I'm done." "I understand, but this is private property. I'm going to have to ask you to move your vehicle immediately." I tried to be polite but firm. "How dare you?" Helga snapped. "I will move when I want to move. Don't you order me around." I could feel my patience waning but stayed calm. "Ma'am, I won't ask again. You are trespassing on my land. You need to move your car now or I will have it towed." Helga glared at me. "Oh yeah, try it. This is a free country. I'll park where I damn well please." She rolled up her window and went back to her phone call, ignoring me completely. I'd had enough. I drove my truck back to the house and called up a buddy of mine who owns a towing company. He came right over with a flatbed and we hauled Helga's BMW back to my driveway. Well, Helga lost it when she finally realized her car was gone. Came racing down the road, red-faced and screaming. "What the hell did you do with my car? This is theft. I'm calling the cops." I met her at the end of my driveway, tow truck still parked there with her BMW on the flatbed. "Ma'am, I had every right to have your illegally parked car removed from my private property. Now I'd be happy to give you your vehicle back, provided you agree not to trespass here again." That only made Helga madder. She got right up in my face, jabbing her finger in my chest. "How dare you? I'll see you in jail for this. This is assault and theft. I'm calling the cops right now." She stormed off before I could respond, furiously punching numbers into her phone. I had a bad feeling things were about to get ugly. There was definitely no reasoning with this lady. Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, a whole squadron of police vehicles came roaring down my driveway, along with SWAT trucks and even a helicopter overhead. They stormed out, guns drawn, ordering me to put my hands up. I tried explaining the situation, but they weren't having it. Cuffed me and put me in the back of a squad car while they questioned Helga. From what Beth told me later, Helga spun some wild tale about how I attacked her and stole her car at gunpoint. Claimed I was some deranged gun nut holding her vehicle for ransom. None of it was true, of course, but the cops were treating it like some kind of hostage crisis. After 2 hours of negotiations, the sheriff finally agreed to look at the footage from my security cameras. Sure enough, it showed exactly what happened. Helga parking illegally, me having the vehicle towed to my driveway and her flying off the handle in response. The sheriff ended up having to apologize to me as they removed the cuffs. Meanwhile, animal control showed up to seize poor Beth's chickens. Apparently Helga had called them too, claiming we were engaged in chicken abuse. More nonsense, but it gave her a chance to spin more lies about me. In the end, I decided not to press charges against Helga for the false police report. The SWAT raid and arrest was punishment enough. I even agreed to drop the trespassing complaint if Helga promised not to set foot on my property again. She scowled but agreed, and that was it. After her wild goose chase, the police told Helga to stop wasting their time with frivolous calls. She could complain all she wanted, but if she trespassed again or made false reports, she'd be the one arrested. So now I have a crazy neighbor who hates my guts, but at least she stays off my land. The chickens came home too, traumatized but healthy, and I invested in some no trespassing signs to keep Helga and her BMW far away. She still gives me the stink eye when I pass by, but I'll take a mean look over a SWAT raid any day. Here's hoping she decides to move somewhere more to her liking and leaves me and my ranch in peace. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I'm the maintenance director at an independent senior living center. It's pretty much an apartment complex in which you have to be a senior citizen to reside. We provide 3 meals a day, housekeeping, activities, a bus for transportation, and several other amenities to increase the quality of life, because more times than not, they will spend the final years of their life here. Our facility is family-owned and oriented. Family members of current employees are encouraged to apply for positions. We have one rule in our employee handbook: ensure resident safety, happiness, and prolongment of life. I take my job very seriously and take pride in it. I try to go above and beyond to make them all happy. Each resident during the daytime either listens to the radio, plays crossword puzzles, or most of the time watches their favorite TV shows. We do not provide television service. Each resident has to provide it themselves if they choose. Over the last year, there has been a trend of televisions not working in countless units, and when this happens, they are very upset. When I get a work order for a TV, I go and check it out. Most of the time, there is nothing I can do. If the cable isn't cut, everything is plugged in, and there is no obstruction to the satellite signal, it's going to be a software issue. When this happens, I install an air antenna until their regular service is fixed. I call the company, and a tech comes out, fixes it, and usually within a couple of hours, it stops working again. This is a never-ending cycle of upset residents. Over the course of an entire year, I spoke with several supervisors and tried to schedule for someone to come out and go through the entire property with me to address each issue. They weren't having that. They wanted me to go to each individual unit and have that particular resident call them. This is almost impossible. A lot of them have trouble hearing and discussing complex matters over the telephone, let alone know the 4-digit code and the answer to the secret question. One resident was out of service for over 60 days, and I demanded that they refund or discount this particular resident properly. They ended up only giving her $21 off, which isn't even half of a single month's payment. When I spoke with this particular representative, I told them that wasn't enough, and I would be throwing all of their dishes in the dumpster. This is just the tip of the iceberg. These companies have caused significant property damage to the facility. They've run the cokes in the gutters and down the downspouts, ran cables draped over the sidewalk, which is a tripping hazard, installed dishes in the center of courtyards and wherever is convenient for them. All over the property, cables are strung out on top of the grass for hundreds of feet. They don't bother to bury any cables. I have discussed this numerous times with the owner of the facility over the last year. The last time I spoke with him about it, he gave me the okay to handle the situation and do whatever needed to be done to fix the issue. My options were limited, and the only feasible option I could concoct was using a landline company that didn't need a satellite dish. Well, I have officially finished running new cokes to every single unit, and a landline company has come in and installed boxes and services in each resident's apartment. Residents who have previously had to pay a monthly fee for their television service now get their service free of charge. Those that never had service now do. We have saved over 50 residents money every month, and all in total over 200 plus now have television service that is included in their rent without any increase whatsoever. This was revenge for the representative talking to Miss T in such a negative and rude tone. I couldn't be happier for my residents. The next one is a petty revenge story, a fairly short story that took place today. So, for context, I'm working as an engineer and all my work is done on my work laptop. Because of this, teleworking is pretty much the way of working ever since the pandemic started. However, 2 weeks ago, we got a new manager who decided that we had to have a mandatory team day at office once a week, basically wanting everyone on the team to be present that day. I don't like the idea of mandatory presence at the office, but whatever, I thought by myself. I usually go once a week to the office anyway for various reasons. Fast forward to today. It's our mandatory day, and I had been coughing since yesterday night, so I decided to not risk it and stay at home. I had the symptoms of some illness but felt like I could still work. Besides that, I don't want half the office to be sick as well by next week and blame me for it. So I sent my manager a mail to inform him that I wouldn't be present at the office. Not much later, I got a reply back stating that agreements must be respected and that mandatory days can't be missed without a doctor's note. So that's exactly what I did. I went to the doctor the same day and she gave me 3 sick days off, took a picture of the doctor's note and sent it to HR with the manager in CC. I still don't understand why he made it such a big deal that I wanted to work from home for my own and my team's well-being. But hey, 3 days off. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This was done by a former colleague. Well, this happened a few years ago when I was working as a techno manager in an Indian startup IT firm. It was a small firm with fewer than 50 employees and 2 founders. Let's call them Vicky and Joel. Vicky had worked a short time in an MNC but was not able to stand authority and had to resign, whereas Joel had no real workplace experience. Vicky managed the place like a king, showing tantrums, anger, etc. Joel was simply a yes man to Vicky. Now we had an HR lady who was okayish with the older employees and strict with the newer ones. As for me, I was not that good technically compared to my colleagues, but was good at people management. Also, I was one of the longest serving employees too. I was friendly with most of the employees, especially the new ones. This was due to the fact that I knew it was not easy to work with the founders, and I wanted the show to continue as it was my first company too. So a new joiner named Bob joins, and after 6 months he is assigned to a project. Because of the time zone difference, he worked up to 5 a.m., and the client too was happy with him. Since he was sleeping late, this guy always reported at nearly 11:30 a.m. in the office. Out of the blue, the founder calls me and HR and asks why Bob is late to the office, and said he has to be in the office by 10 a.m. like the other guys. By the way, forgot to mention Vicky and Joel came into the office only once in a while, and it was pre-corona times, but since they are founders, let's ignore that. The HR lady took the responsibility of asking Bob about that. At this point, since the HR lady is not aware of Bob's working hours, I interrupted and told her that he's leaving the office only by 4 a.m., and it's kind of unfair to ask him to come early. Vicky cut me off and said, no, he has to follow rules, and this is the basic etiquette when working in this office. I said, okay. The HR lady calls Bob into her office and questions him about the timings, to which Bob says, okay, ma'am, we'll comply. Now Bob and I have a good rapport, and he comes directly to me and tells me what happened with the HR. Then I ask him, what are you going to do? To which he says, I will ask for clarification via mail, and then will comply. I understood where it's going and give him the best of luck, trying hard to contain my laughter. After 10 mins, the HR comes to me with her laptop in panic and shows me the mail which Bob has sent. He has CC'd the founders, the client head he's reporting to, and has written something along the lines of this. Hi, client head name. This is to inform you that as a request from my office to comply with the office timings, from tomorrow onwards, my work timings would be 10 a.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST, that is, 10:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. Chicago time. I request you to change your meeting times to the times when I am available, and if any inconveniences, please contact HR, Vicky, or Joel. Thanks, Bob. I asked the HR if this was somewhere mentioned in the offer letter, and she nods yes. Then I tell her to take the matter to Vicky. In Vicky's room, since the narcissist guy he is, scolds HR for not noting this in the offer letter, then asks her to correct this. She goes to Bob and asks for a correction, to which Bob firmly says no. The HR lady, being stupid, tells that she told this because Vicky asked her to, and Bob still stands firm and asks HR if Vicky has said it, then asks Vicky to formally reply in the mail thread asking to revert to his old timings. Bob also says that he is not going to get back to old timings unless Vicky mails, and they have approximately 4 hours to do so before the client reacts. The HR comes to me for help, and we go together to Vicky's room and brief him. Vicky lashes out at HR, and at this point I interrupt and say it's better to address the issue as in 4 hours the client will get involved, and we have to take a decision before that. Vicky hesitantly sends out the mail saying it was a mistake as Bob's special case was not considered during the decision-making, and Bob can continue his earlier timings. As I walked back to the office, I saw Bob looking at me and laughing really hard, and I had to hold a straight face as the HR lady was also behind me. Needless to say, Bob has his timings intact. The next one is an entitled People Story. I'm a 27 Hispanic male on the spectrum, and I work at a big retail hardware store. I'll try to be subtle with where I work for the sake of my anonymity. Now I do loading assistance for customers that need help with carrying heavy items. In my line of work, I've practically almost lifted it all. Wood, drywall, glass window gates, doors, insulation, you name it. As an employee, I've had my fair share of customers I've barely tolerated, and I just grin and bear it because it's my job. And Lord knows in the world of retail, there are people that will come in less than 5 minutes before we close. It happens. But last night I dealt with a last-minute customer whose vibe was simply unpleasant. He looked to be older than my father by a few years, was white with a white beard that went down to his neck. He comes in less than 5 minutes before we close and parks in the loading area when he's not supposed to, and he says he knows what he's going to get, and that he wants help loading. From the way he spoke and his smug tone of voice, one of my male co-workers and I did not like him. There was this entitlement in his voice when he said, "Are you going to help me load insulation?" I helped him to provide excellent customer service, but my God, he was ungrateful. He wanted 6 pieces of insulation, and I loaded all 4 pieces of insulation into a large enough cart while he dragged 2 pieces of insulation by himself. When it was time to pay for his insulation, this jerk dragged 2 of his pieces of insulation outside before paying for all his products. He tried to make me load the other pieces of insulation. When I protested that I wouldn't load until he officially paid for everything, he asked in that entitled tone of voice, "You think I don't have money?" Thankfully, the head cashier, whom I'm friends with, stepped in and explained that it was corporate policy. I was just trying to stay calm because I did not like this a-hole. Once it was all paid for, I loaded the rest of his insulation, and he didn't even say thanks for helping, so I didn't even bother thanking him for shopping with us and wishing him a nice evening, because I was sick of his crap and I just wanted to go home. It's not often I deal with an entitled last-minute customer, but boy do they leave a rotten impression on me and my co-workers. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.